Medical marijuana is legal in 20 states, but non-medicinal marijuana is only legal in 2 states so far, one of which is my home state of Washington. So I found an entrepreneur who's placed a bet on legal marijuana domain names and built a fledgling business around it. We're going to learn what he's done, how he's done it, and how you might want to do the same in your state. Stay tuned. I have 3 short sponsor messages before we get into today's show. First, if you're a domain name investor, you have unique intellectual property needs, and you need an IP attorney that understands them, that follows the industry, and can help you navigate UDRP, copyright, and trademark laws. David Westlow of Wiley Ryan is the lawyer to call for internet legal issues. Second, if you have a great domain name and nothing to show when people visit, you're missing out on potential advertising revenue, leads, and partnership opportunities. NicheWebsites.com can build your site quickly with a price option to suit any need. But as their tagline says, they don't just build websites, they build businesses. Finally, if you're buying or selling a domain name or a portfolio and you want an estimate of its value, Estabot.com is the place to go. Just like you'd visit Zillow.com to get an estimate of a house value, Estabot.com provides key information about the most important statistics so you can make an informed decision based on data. All 3 sponsors have a clickable banner in the upper right-hand corner of DomainSherpa.com. Here's your program. Hey everyone, my name is Michael Seiger and I'm the publisher of DomainSherpa.com, the website where you come to learn how to become a successful domain name investor and entrepreneur directly from the experts. In November 2012, my home state of Washington passed Initiative 502, which allows adults over the age of 21 to legally possess up to an ounce of marijuana and to legally consume it. As with any discontinuity in business or technology or society, this represents an opportunity for entrepreneurs. But how do you take advantage of this opportunity? That's the question that we're going to answer on today's show. Joining us to answer this question is Noel Abbott, founder of THC Media Group. Noel, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks, Michael. Great to be here.
It's great to have a local Washingtonian on here too. You're in what city are you located?
I'm in Bellingham right now. I
Excellent.
actually grew up near here in a smaller town, and then I moved away for college and came back. And instead of moving to my small rural hometown, I chose a larger, kind of younger culture.
Bellingham has that. It's a nice area. So I want to start by setting the background and scope for today's discussion about marijuana. Today's show, we're going to talk mainly about non-medicinal marijuana. You know, medicinal marijuana, I think, has been talked about and it's regulated heavily, and we're not talking about that. We're talking about non-medicinal marijuana, or I don't know what you call it, pleasure marijuana, or you know, it's like alcohol. Being able to go to a store, buy alcohol or marijuana, and then come home and enjoy it. But if you have some knowledge or statistics about medical marijuana industry that might help us better understand where we're heading with the marijuana industry, please feel free to share that, Noel.
Certainly.
All right, so Washington State passed this initiative in late 2012, and now we're in mid-2013. Are there any marijuana stores open yet?
No, the original timeline from I-502 was to have the retail outlets open in December of this year. And I've been following the Washington State Liquor Control Board's progress very carefully, and they have, of course, encountered many more obstacles than were anticipated. And so now I think the target date for the retail stores being open and for normal Washington citizens to be able to walk in and buy marijuana from a store is sometime in March or April. I think the licenses will be issued in December as of now.
All right, so December 2013, licenses will be issued to stores. So, for example, if I wanted to run a liquor store, up until last year, we had to go to a Washington State-run liquor store to purchase our alcohol, our hard alcohol. Wine and beer you can buy at a grocery store, but you had to go to a state-controlled liquor store to buy. That was changed last year as well. So now you can go and you can buy hard alcohol, vodka, and tequila at the supermarket. And And so in a similar fashion, if I want to run a liquor store, I need to go get licensed from the, what'd you call it? The Washington State
It's the Washington State Liquor Control Board.
Liquor Control Board. Now, is that same board controlling marijuana going forward?
Yes. So the funny thing is they've been, managing the liquor market in Washington since their creation.
Right.
And this whole process of legalizing and regulating marijuana sales was just kind of pushed upon them by I-502. And, of course, no one really has experience with legal recreational marijuana. So they're kind of improvising. They have been having a lot of debates and discussions that are open to the public. And I've been sort of tuning into those. They publish the audio online. Mm-hmm. And it seems like they're making progress in developing a system. As to whether or not it's going to be a good system, there are vastly different opinions on it.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the keyword phrase I was looking for. Recreational marijuana. You don't call it recreational drinking, but recreational marijuana is pretty much the phrase that describes the use of marijuana for non-medicinal purposes, right?
Yes.
Okay. So how big, we're going to talk about what you're doing next, but let's try to put some scope around it. Do you know how big the medicinal marijuana market is in the United States?
It's pretty big. I know that there are questions as to how accurate all of the data is. Mm-hmm. But I know that in Washington, in cities that have given medical marijuana dispensaries the go-ahead to open up shops, they've just kind of sprung up everywhere. I was on this website the other day, weedmaps.com, which is a sort of search engine for medical marijuana patients to find and review dispensaries. Mm-hmm. And that's actually the company that bought marijuana.com a few years ago, I think for $4.2 million or something. If you look at Seattle on Weed Maps, there's well over 100 dispensaries just for the medical market in Seattle right now.
Wow. Yeah. All right. So
I think the market is probably bigger than most of the estimates have been.
Yeah.
Because it's not.
Do you think the medical is, so I'm just trying to put a number around it. Do you think it's $100 million industry or a $500 million industry?
Just for the state?
Yeah, just for the state. What do you think?
I wouldn't be surprised if it was in that range.
Yeah. Okay. And so do you think the recreational marijuana industry is going to be larger or smaller?
I personally think that it will be larger. I think that the majority of people who consume marijuana recreationally haven't gone to the trouble of going and trying to find a reason why they would be medically certifiable to consume it and gone through with the doctor's appointment and then, all of the paperwork. I think that most of the people who are consuming it are just doing it illegally.
Right.
As they have been for a really long time.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about what you're doing. I ran across a press release of yours. You put out, and it must have crossed my desk because you mentioned domain names in it. And then I saw that you were a local Washington company. I had to reach out to you. So you put out a press release saying THC Media Group had launched. What is THC?
THC is, well, in my company name, it stands for Twin Helix Company. But THC is the active ingredient also. And that was part of the reason why I chose that brand name.
Yeah. And so what does THC Media Group do?
THC Media Group is going to be a one-stop solution for cannabis entrepreneurs to get their business online and to create a following on social media and to have a website and email marketing, pretty much everything that they would need for their business to attract attention on the internet.
Excellent. So people are going to have to figure out a lot of things when they're starting up a marijuana business because they haven't, there's no model for them to look at. They can't, exactly. It's not like starting an automotive repair business or a nail service business or something like that where they can go out and look at other people who are doing it, decide what they like and what they don't like, and figure out how they want to run their business. It's entirely new, so they need to figure out everything. And what you're saying is you can take all of the marketing promotion for their online cannabis business off their plate and do it for a service.
Yes, that will be one option. The other option will be to have access to our platform so that they can utilize all of these tools in one location and manage their online marketing themselves. They could also hire us to manage all that for them.
Gotcha. So you're building a software as a service platform that will allow them to service their whole business themselves?
It is going to be that. It's not something that I am developing from scratch. I'm sort of creating partnerships to put together a service that will encompass everything that they need.
Excellent. But if somebody comes to you and says, Noel, I see you have some domain names. I want to start up a marijuana shop in Tacoma. What can you do for them?
I have several of the cannabis keyword domain names for Tacoma. So that could be a starting point if they came specifically wanting the domain name first. And from there, I would be able to develop a website, set up all of their social media, create custom social media pages with apps that sort of are tailored to businesses to have a more unique social media presence. To be able to set up their email marketing and then also help them come up with ideas to sort of get their business out in the press and get attention beyond social media and email marketing.
Nice. Well, it seems like you're definitely a one-stop shop. Right now I've got a browser open. I'm on your website, thcdomains.com. And I'm looking at all of the domains that you have listed, which are a lot. Now I'm looking at your generics. So you have things like thctesters.com, go420.com, goganja.com, weedcritic.com, I guess for somebody that wants to smoke every different type of weed and give their review of it. That could be
there will probably be a market for that.
That could be a good job. Let's see, hydroponics box. So for people that want to buy everything in a box, you've got a domain for them.
Yeah, and a lot of these domain names are actually people who I've partnered with to commission their portfolio. I sort of put out a press release a while back that was to recruit people who were domain name collectors in the marijuana niche, because what I wanted to build was a very large collection for entrepreneurs to choose from when they decided that they were at that stage in their business.
Right.
I do own quite a few of my own, which was partially what started the whole THC Media Group project. After the initiative passed in November of 2012, I stayed up all night buying domain names for various cities in Washington, all of the cannabis and marijuana keyword domain names.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you about your domains and what domains you have and how you're partnering and how many domains you have. And I want to understand how you're working with other people that might want to take advantage of what you're offering as a result of the package, because I think that's going to really appeal to entrepreneurs who are starting their business. They don't just want a domain name. They want access to a website and social media and services and things like that. So let me ask you about that. So prior to starting THC Media Group and THC Domains, your background wasn't in the domain name industry, was it?
No, I was pretty much exclusively pursuing website development projects. I graduated college in 2008 and pretty quickly realized that my degree in creative writing wasn't going to lead to very many job opportunities. So I sort of fell back on the fact that I had always enjoyed playing around with HTML, and I familiarized myself with some of the popular content management systems that were out there. And I just started pursuing freelance online web design gigs. I had some very strange clients along the way. I think some of the weirdest ones were a taxi cab driver in San Francisco who wanted to run for office. And then there was a woman who was a colon hydrotherapist. So it was very interesting.
Yeah.
Mix of people. I got a lot of.
And how did these people find you, Noel? How did they find you?
A lot of it was me seeking out jobs on platforms like elance.com
Uh-huh.
and Craigslist, local companies. And eventually I wound up pairing up with a few of my friends from high school who wound up living in Bellingham as well. And when I found out that they were involved in areas that related to online marketing and graphic design and website development, I sort of teamed up with them and we created a local business here in Bellingham, Happy Chat Media, where we offer affordable website development to smaller businesses who either don't have a website or who maybe had one built 10 years ago and they
Want to
look around
update
at
it.
their competitors and realize that they need to upgrade.
Right. And what was the name of that company again for the transcriber? You said it quickly.
It's Happy Chap Media. Happy
Happy-
Chap is one word.
Happy Chap, CHAP?
Yep.
Cool. All right. Happychap.com. Or is it
Happy Chap Media.
happychapmedia.com?
Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
And so along the way, you had a customer that was in the medicinal marijuana industry. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. I was approached by a dispensary in Seattle who wanted a website. And so I wound up building it for them. And then it occurred to me that there was this whole industry of businesses who needed websites. And so I started focusing on that and thinking about it quite a bit more. And I knew that the I-502 initiative was on the ballot. And so I had started thinking about it vaguely in advance. And then when it passed, I decided I was going to create a new project to focus entirely on that.
So you didn't buy any domain names related to this new business, thcmediagroup.com, until the initiative actually passed.
Yes, that is correct.
See, that's the difference between you and me, Noel, and I credit you for doing this, is that, I remember the day the ballots were due. I had my my ballot catalog that describes all the initiatives, and I was going online and reading more information, and then I ran into the 502, and I was researching how I wanted to vote on it, and I thought, here's an opportunity. I probably wasted too much time. I'm going to go online and see what kind of domain names are available. And I think I typed in, WashingtonMarijuana.com and WAMarijuana.com and, maybe a couple others, and they were all taken. So I'm like, oh, right, I waited too long. I'm just going to vote and be done with it. But you didn't, and you registered a lot of domain names at that point in time. How many domain names did you register related to this new business?
That first night, I think I stayed up until about 5 or 6 in the morning, and I registered like close to 100 domain names. I think I almost spent my rent money on it. So yeah, that was the first round. And then a few months later, I had saved up some more money and I started checking out domain names that weren't necessarily all about cities.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of started brainstorming if there were product ideas that no one had thought of yet,
Right.
but that were to come into existence eventually.
Like hydroponics in a box or something like that.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So the first 100 that you bought with your rent money, that was pretty much geographic domain names?
Yes, that was for, I looked up the cities in Washington with the highest populations and kind of just used that as a short list and wound up buying, stuff like EverettMarijuana.com and KentMarijuana.com, Bellingham Marijuana. I think the biggest cities had already been taken probably by someone with a little more foresight who probably bought all the cities with very large populations across the U.S.
Right. But when I go to your when I go to your geographic domains tab on thcdomains.com, I can see that you do have domains. You don't actually list them, it looks like, but you have domains in the cities of Seattle, Tacoma, Spokane, Olympia, Everett, Vancouver, Kent, Auburn, Mercer Island, Bellingham, Federal Way, Renton. And then you also have some in Colorado, Denver, Fort Collins, and Boulder. So you're able to get some in the other state that is legal as well.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Yeah, I kind of went through both states, all the largest cities, and tried to snatch up the ones that I could find.
So what do you think are some of your best domains? What are your favorites?
The ones that I own personally, some of my favorites I think are beyond just the geographic domain names. I think those will definitely have a market, but it's a ways off. I think the ones that I got that are, marijuanaindustrydata.com,
Mm-hmm.
and the same for cannabis and hemp industry data.
Mm-hmm.
I think that with all of these businesses that are starting up in this sort of investment frenzy that's going to happen, there's going to be people scrambling for data, and there isn't really very much out there. But if someone was able to build a large amount of data, they could use a website like that to
Definitely
create a business.
Yeah, and I can see some of the domains that you bought that were in your second round that are more brandable, and some of them that are more product and service oriented. Like I can see strongestmarijuana.com. I can, I can envision somebody who just wants like the most potent marijuana possible. Or there's mellow marijuana that just wants to smoke it and just mellow out. So you definitely put a lot of thought into how people are going to be searching for marijuana.
Yeah, there's one.
Go ahead,
One that I think is pretty funny was cannabisbedandbreakfast.com. There could well be a thriving tourism industry around it.
Yeah. So how many in total domain names do you think your company owns right now?
Probably close to 250 or 300, and then plus quite a few more from the people who have hired me to broker sales.
Okay. And so let's talk about, well, let me ask you about geodomains one more time. So you've got geodomains. I can see, let's see here. Actually, I don't see a lot of the geos. Like you've got BellevuePot.com, Everett Pot, Kent Pot, IssaquahMarijuana.com, things like that. Did you go city plus the keyword.com, or did you go keyword then city.com?
If they were both available, I would buy them both.
What's your thought process around that?
I am planning on offering regional exclusivity to businesses who want to own all of the most relevant keyword domain names in their area, so that they can know that no one will have confusion about their domain name if they have, say, everettmarijuana.com and someone else has marijuanaeverett.com. So that was the thinking behind getting all of the variations.
Yeah.
And I did wind up on some of the larger cities, I wound up buying, a few .orgs and .nets as well.
Yeah, and so I see a few of them listed there, but most of them, probably, 95% of the domains I can see are .com.
Yeah.
Are you, were the .orgs, .nets in really popular keyword phrases, or what was your thought process around the .com, .net, .orgs?
In those cases, it was mostly cities like Seattle and Tacoma where the .coms were taken, but I knew that the .nets would have some inherent value because the markets were going to be so much larger in those cities.
Gotcha. Did you use keyword density tools to determine what keywords might be more beneficial? Like if you type in Seattle marijuana or Seattle ganja to see which one has more search volume?
I did a bit of research. I think that marijuana is the keyword that is most prevalent, but in my experience, looking up different websites and seeing which ones rank for certain phrases, marijuana and cannabis seem to be on a similar playing field in what gets ranked in Google. Words like ganja and pot and weed, I don't think Google classifies them with as high of a value.
Yeah, and those come with negative connotations also. So I'm not sure if it's hard to tell because none of this has happened yet. But for people that want to use legal marijuana, recreational marijuana, would they actually use pot, or would they actually use ganja, or one of the phrases that is slang on the street?
It's hard to say. I think that of course, there's going to be a market for the slang. I don't think the culture surrounding the people who consume marijuana is going to change. So there probably will be stores that use words like pot and weed. But I think that in terms of the reputability, that might suffer a little bit when you see a sign that says local weed versus cannabis club or something like that.
Right. Yeah, and cannabis is hard to spell, and marijuana is kind of long, but at least it's I can sound that one out and spell it a little bit easier than cannabis, I think. So since you put out your initial press release, well, your first press release and then the one that I saw, how many other domain name registrants have contacted you to partner with you on your venture?
Actually, quite a few. I think I get maybe 3 or 4 inquiries a week at this point.
Wow.
But most of the people who are contacting me maybe have 2 or 3 domain names, and they phrase it as, do you want to buy this domain name? And right now I'm not looking to buy domain names, especially ones that are already registered and that people are looking to flip. So most of the people that contact me, I wind up turning down. But I think maybe 5 or 6 collectors who have pretty large collections have contacted me, and I've partnered with them to display them on the website.
Nice. So what kind of relationship do you create with them? Is it a legal one? Do you have an agreement? Is there a defined commission structure? How does that work?
There is a defined commission structure, and right now I'm handling all of the communications that come in from potential buyers. So I wouldn't necessarily make them sign a contract until I had a buyer who was ready to sell.
Got it. And because they're contacting you anyways, you don't need to necessarily lock it up.
Yeah. And I didn't want to run the risk of scaring people away by locking them into an exclusivity deal or charging them money to advertise on my website. I just wanted to have the most relevant and best domain names available for
definitely. And the more complete your list is, the bigger the venture you look like. So you win as well, and you're not locking up anything. Yeah. So if a domain name investor wants to sell a domain name that's listed on your website, that's their prerogative as well, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. So let's say that a domain name sells through your website. What kind of commission structure do you take on that?
It would depend on the price. Right now, the way I have it set is it's pretty much the commission starts out higher for lower price domain names, and then for higher price domain names, it caps off at about 15%.
Okay. And what happens if somebody has a great geographic domain name that they want to lease? They don't want to sell it, so they want to maintain ownership, and they just want to turn it into a cash annuity, which is something that you do because you do services. You'll create a website for a fee, but then you'll also charge ongoing marketing expenses. Is that something that they can do through you as well?
I would definitely consider that. It hasn't been something that I've fleshed out yet, primarily because there are still 5 or 6 months before these entrepreneurs are probably really going to get started on working on their new business.
Right.
But that is definitely something that I would consider, and it's definitely something that I'm considering for the geographic domain names that I already own.
Got it. So you haven't made any sales yet. You're doing all of this preparation work in anticipation of the entrepreneurs going out, getting registered in late this year, December, could fall to next year, and then starting up next year sometime.
Yes, that's where I'm at right now. I've had a few offers, but they've mostly been low, and I think that the value of the domain names isn't really evidenced yet. We still have to kind of wait and see what the industry looks like, and whether or not there's going to be some kind of massive crackdown from the federal government. But I think it's unlikely, and I have a good feeling that there's going to be quite a competitive market in the next year or so.
Yeah, well, it is interesting because the state can legalize it, but marijuana stays in your system longer than alcohol. And if you have a job that requires drug testing and no drug use, then, even though it's legal, you could get fired for it. So, there's still all these ramifications around employment law, and the federal government could overrule the state government and say, no, you can't sell recreational marijuana. Anything's possible right now, would you say, Noel?
I think that as far as the federal government trying to overturn the initiative that the state passed, I don't think that's going to happen. But it is still illegal at the federal level, and they are still, they haven't really made clear what their position on the concept of a recreational marijuana industry is.
Yeah.
I know that in the medical marijuana industry, the federal government has historically only cracked down on people who they suspect of funneling drugs into illegal channels, as well as the people who become so high profile that they're just clearly making millions and millions of dollars, and they become the big targets that the DEA focuses on.
Right. Understood. All right. And so if shops can start to open up in March, April of 2014, will they be able to basically open up their shop and have marijuana delivered and from, I guess, some other state where you can grow it? And then will they start selling it immediately, do you think?
The marijuana will actually all be produced in Washington. And they're going to have a seed-to-sale tracking system.
Oh.
That was one of the most recent announcements from the Washington State Liquor Control Board, is they announced a request for proposals from software developers for someone to develop a tracking system so that they can have a specific seed and track it all the way from where the plant grows, people harvest it, and then they can track it all the way to when it is sold at a retail outlet.
Wow.
So they want to make very certain that no marijuana is coming in from outside sources, and especially that no marijuana is coming in from, say, the medical marijuana industry, where it's much less regulated. In fact, there is basically no regulation.
Wow. So medicinal marijuana shops can grow their own weed, and they don't want them to grow extra and then sell it through legal channels like recreational marijuana shops, for example.
I think the way that the medical marijuana industry works in Washington right now is that the patients are actually the ones who produce the marijuana, and you're allowed to grow up to a certain number of plants, and they can form growing collectives. But I don't think that it is allowed for the collective to grow it in the same location that they sell it. I could be mistaken on that, but
yeah.
I think that there are loose regulations that are sort of vaguely enforced, but there's sort of a separation between the production and the distribution. But in the recreational market, it's going to be very defined. There are going to be growers' licenses, processors' licenses, and then retail licenses. Mm-hmm. And I don't think you will be able to operate in more than one of those areas if you are going to have a license.
Wow. They're really creating a lot of bureaucracy there, aren't they? Growers, yeah. I guess they got rid of some of their bureaucracy with alcohol, so they need to create more with marijuana. Growers, processors, and then retail. So there's going to be, what kind of delay are we going to see? How long does it take to grow a marijuana plant? How long might it take in order to actually have retail stores selling it if they got a license today, for example?
If they got a license today, they would be on track for opening the stores in December, which was the original plan. I think since they're issuing the licenses in December, it will take 3.5 months for the first products to actually wind up on the shelves of the stores.
Okay. All right. So 3 different types of licenses, and the retailers are the ones you're pretty much focused on. Do you see any opportunity in the growers and the processors areas as well?
I do. I think that the retailers aren't the only businesses that are going to need online marketing. I think that for growers and processors, the processors especially are going to be people who develop specialty products like certain edible infused products, and they might want to build a brand around their bakery or something like that. So there's, I think, a high likelihood that businesses involved in the other areas of this industry are also going to need websites and online marketing.
Yeah. Marijuana cookies. I should check that out, right?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's already been taken up. There is a marijuana muffin, I think, is the ones on
I like that
website.
alliteration too. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so 3 different types of licenses. You think that you're going to need services in the entire life cycle of the marijuana sales. Excellent. And so you're in it for the long haul. You've thrown down $3,000 in domain name registrations. You've got a beautiful website up and running. You've got some partnerships that are working on this. You're gonna have to pay another year of reg fees before you even see maybe your first customer. Does it make you a little nervous to start off a brand new business, being relatively young and locking up a lot of capital like this without any revenue coming in?
I still have a day job, but I think I'm fairly confident that this is going to happen whether or not there's a federal crackdown. I think it would be just sort of beyond the scope of logistic ability for them to crack down on every single business that opens up in this new industry. So I think that given that right now I'm leading for the keywords that I want to lead for and that I already have so much momentum, that I'm in a good position to build a customer base at the beginning of next year.
Nice. And Colorado was the first state to become legalized. Is that correct?
Well, just because of the time zones, really. It happened the same night.
It happened the exact same day.
Yeah.
Okay. And are they moving any faster than Washington, would you say?
I believe so. I haven't followed their process as closely as I have for Washington, but I know that the original plan was for them to start opening retail stores this summer. So I'm not sure if they've encountered delays. I certainly haven't seen headlines recently about being able to buy pot recreationally in Colorado, but I do know that the original timeline was going to have them opening up their industry before Washington.
Gotcha. All right. And so there's not a lot defined around recreational marijuana use. It's sort of the, if people watching this show think the domain name industry is the wild, wild west, the marijuana industry has got to be the new world. And so there's nothing around how you should do marketing and what is sort of an ethical standard. But you've had thoughts around defining ethical standards for marijuana and cannabis marketing. What are you thinking in that area, Noel?
Yeah, we are putting together a proposal for ethical standards when marketing cannabis and marijuana. I think it's going to overlap very much so with the ethical standards that are out regarding tobacco and alcohol. Clearly, you want to be very careful about advertising a product in such a way that would be appealing to someone who's underage. And I also think that it should not be the goal of cannabis advertisers to convert smokers. If someone wants to go out and buy marijuana, they can choose to do that, and they don't need help from an advertisement to make that decision for the first time. So I think a lot of the trends that apply to tobacco and alcohol are going to be really important for advertisers in the new industry to keep in mind when they're marketing cannabis use and selling marijuana.
Excellent. And where can they go? Will you have that on your website, thcmediagroup.com, when that's available?
Yes, that will be coming out, I think, within the next week. It's been a work in progress. I'm still doing a lot of research and figuring out the best way to phrase things, but it's nearing completion, and it is something that we will be publishing very soon.
Excellent. All right, Noel, so here's the last question that I have for you. It's regarding domain names in general. You've been a web developer professionally for years. You understand how to build an online presence in its entirety. How important are the domain names? And, clearly we've talked about the 300 or so domain names that you've purchased. How important is a domain name for getting found, for, a brand recognition, for creating an online presence for these new ventures that are coming out? Can they just pick up any domain, MI or MAWA.com, Marijuana Washington acronym? Will that be as good as a generic keyword domain name?
I personally think that the keyword domain names are better. As far as what's going to perform the best for search engine optimization purposes, that's always going to be in flux. I think that Google is really honing in on the fact that they care the most about user friendliness and positive experience from the user. So the domain name, I think, is secondary to the brand that you build and the website that you create. But I still do think that having a generic keyword domain name, especially a geographic-based domain name for a retail store, is going to help them out quite a bit.
Yeah. And does the retail store need to actually be named that same name, that same domain name? So if I buy rentinmarijuana.com, does my business actually need to be named Rentin Marijuana?
I don't think it's crucial, but I think that there is a sense, at least right now, in the way that search engines classify things, where if your domain name says one thing and the name of your business is something else, that you might get dinged for trustworthiness on that. But I think that, people shouldn't be thinking that that's absolutely what they need to do.
Right. Yeah, because in, the real estate industry, we see it every time. There's like, 1,000 realtors for every large city, and they can't all have the city plus real estate .com. So,
yeah, exactly.
And Google characterizes those differently. Excellent. All right. If you have a follow-up question for Noel, please post it in the comments below the video, and we'll ask him to come back and answer as many as he can. Noel, if somebody wants to contact you and say thank you for coming on the show, or maybe they have a domain name that is used in the recreational marijuana industry that they want to discuss with you, maybe list on your website, what's the best way that they can connect with you?
They can contact through the website, or they can just send an email to contact@thcmediagroup.com.
Excellent. Noel Abbott, founder of THC Media Group, thanks for coming on the show, talking about your new venture, and we wish you all the luck, and thanks for being a Domain Sherpa.
Thank you. Yeah, it was great to be here.
Great. And we'll get you back on here in as soon as the first licenses go out, and we'll talk about your first sale.
All right. Great. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.